hello everyone. Welcome to this meetup of the GDG Cloud Budapest community. I'm Kamila Kersner, co-organizer of the group, and I'm going to be the event host today. And let me introduce Zsigmond P. Tóth to you as well, as he's also one of the organizers of the group and is going to be our moderator today. Thank you for joining us, Zsigmond.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, for the people that don't know, GDG stands for Google Developer Groups, and as one of them, we regularly organize events like this, and we strive to bring you the latest trends and solutions related to GCP. So if you don't want to miss out, join the community and learn from your fellow GCP enthusiasts. To do so, just scan the QR code or find the link to the community in the chat. And as you might already know, today's session is being recorded, so please keep that in mind during the Q&A session. And that also means that within a few weeks, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel called Clouders Club, where you can rewatch the whole session. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the chat and subscribe for more cloud content. And with the next slide, I would like to take a moment to recognize our main partner, Deutsche Telekom IT Solutions. As the largest ICT employer in Hungary, they play an essential role in driving innovation and providing top-tier solutions to their international corporate customers in areas such as software development, system integration, and operation. But beyond their business expertise, Deutsche Telekom IT Solutions has been a significant contributor to this community, consistently offering resources and speakers for our events, just like today. We are truly grateful for their partnership and support, which makes meetups like this possible. So let's continue these traditions and enable knowledge sharing in a flexible and interactive way, let's say. We are always very happy if you're curious and ask questions, so these two presentations could be really helpful for you. To ask your questions, you have two options. One, just type them in the chat whenever they arise, and we will collect them, and the speakers will answer them towards the end of their talks. And option two is at the end of the presentations, there will be dedicated Q&A sections when you can unmute yourself and ask your questions verbally. For that, just please click on the hand raise button on the bottom, and we will unmute you. And that's enough of the intros. Thanks for the attention. And I'd like to give the word to our first speaker. Tamás, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Kamila. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here. My name is Tamás Szebeni. I work for Deutsche Telekom TSE Hungary. And I recently had a presentation here about landing zones, the theory behind landing zones. And this talk will be the next in that terms, in that theory, in that topic, where I will talk about the implementation for the landing zone. But I need to packed it a bit, so I need to fit it within 40 minutes. So there will be different fragments, different topics I will focus on, and of course you can ask any time, and I will try to answer. So let it begin. Just a quick recap from my previous talk, which is like about automated and secure landing zone. What is actually landing zone? There are different interpretations, but it's quite common that it is kind of modular, scalable configuration for organizations. So that it is not only Google Cloud specific, the idea can be interpreted to other cloud providers. But the main thing here is that for ensuring their business continuity, they need to manage some of the risks. And for that, they need centralized monitoring, security and governance. The landing zone should fulfill governance requirements. They are defined internally or defined by the government. And also they would like to enable their team to do the innovation within this landing zone. So they would like to provide these services in a controlled way for their teams. How it is actually implemented, usually there is a resource hierarchy. There is a top root node called organization, and below that there are different forgers, and the actual projects, GCP projects, are organized into those forgers. From identity management point of view, for Google Cloud, we use Cloud Identity most of the cases. In some cases, Google Workspace, which means that some of the Google provided other applications the organization also has a license for, which also has some of the integrations, but the identity management is a place where we have the user data, we have user groups, and we have integrations like identity synchronization from LDAP or SRE systems or some other services. Also, I was talking about the IAM concept and what it is actually. This is the way how we can define the permissions, who can do what and where, which means that there could be users and service can being provisioned. They can be organized into groups in cloud identity, and within IAM we can create policies where we can list like we can assign these identities certain roles, and certain roles define the available permissions for different services on cloud. And we do it across the whole hierarchy. So we can do this policy assignment on the root top node at organization level, or we can do it folder or project level, or even resource level. And we follow the least privilege principle here. I was also mentioned groups for typical scenarios. We usually create this list of user groups, but for sure we adopt it to the organization needs. So in some cases, these personas could be different, but otherwise we use these the common IAM permissions for ensuring their capabilities, and we can include even the same person into these groups, so they can, that way they can wear multiple hats, let's say. It is also important for a landing zone the network design. In most cases, or the simplest case, we are going with the hub and spoke topology, but later on we customize it for the actual customer need. Usually the problem is that there is already an on-prem environment, like a data center, and the customers would like to ensure a secure way to connect from it to the public cloud, so that their data remains protected in a way that their workloads can communicate to each other, but also remain protected from, for example, malware attack or crypto mining attacks against the cloud environment. So what makes landing zone secure? Google has an enterprise foundation blueprint, which is like 100 pages long PDF file, lists all the main aspects, the design for making landing zone secure, but also Google follows the zero trust security model. It incorporates its own practices within Google, and they opened it. That was, I think, the Beyond Corp, and they opened it as Beyond Prod enterprise framework. But also the landing zone should provide centralized control with detective and preventive security controls. And so what is a landing zone? Actually, with the cloud identity, we have a root node, kind of organization node. It allows us to create forgers. It allows us grouping the project resources together. We need automation for that. In most cases, we use Git and Terraform. It also means that identity management is ensured, resource management, cost management, and network connectivity design is accepted by the customer. Security monitoring is ensured, and we also need to ensure the governance part of it. And there could be several different integrations to it later on when we establish the baseline for the landing zone and work on the integrations part. So, and for the automation, because this is my main focus here on this talk, I list here how usually we are doing it. There are some customers who still uses service account credential keys, but that is considered unsecure, and better to use workload identity federation for the automation pipelines. And how it works is that there are trusted third parties. In that case, in this picture, GitHub, we consider it as a trusted third party. And we built the trust between the GitHub system and the Google Cloud environment by creating a workload identity pool. And that means that the JOT token, which is like a token with security certificate built in with signature check, that lists who it created. It lists all the some of the details like a JSON document, this repository, who was the opener for the pull request, what branch the event happened. And we, on the Google Cloud side, we have a way to validate the signature on this JOT token, and we can ensure that it was not tampered with. In that way, we can provide temporary credentials to the pipeline back, and we can do a federated token exchange in that way. So the pipeline from the GitHub side provides its JOT token from the GitHub system. We exchange that on the Google Cloud side to a Google Cloud token. And from that point, Terraform accepts that short-term credential and can provision the resources by communicating with Google Cloud APIs. So this will be the focus here. Let me jump to the demo. So first, I will talk about Cloud Foundation Fabric. You can find it on GitHub. This is a toolkit created by the professional services organization from Google, mainly for their internal work, mainly for their own toolkit, but they open sourced it for us to consume. So, at the Deutsche Telekom TSI Hungary in the Google team, we already use it for like 4 years now, and we use it to provision landing zones for our customers. Here, I will talk about a certain release, which is V33, because the latest code on master usually is not stable, or there could be problems there. That is the actual development. So I will focus on this version. How it looks like there are several folders. The most important folders within is like blueprints, the fast, and modules. The modules, this holds all the Terraform modules, which are otherwise very useful if you are not aiming to use the Fabric fast on its own, but these Terraform modules are very well written and easy to use, easy to put together. The blueprints, that's the let's say composition over on top of these modules to serve certain problems, like deploying a serverless stack, secure way, GK cluster. These incorporates some opinionated design, but also leaves room for customization. And my focus here is the Forger Fast. This is the opinionated landing zone adoption from the Google Professional Services Organization. And I will use this one. So what is it actually? It is a whole setup. You can read about it a lot, but one picture can tell you 1,000 words. So there are different stages. Each stage enables the next dependent stages some way. And for the very beginning, we need to start with the bootstrap deployment. Actually, it solves the chicken and egg problem, because with Terraform, we usually need to store the state files somewhere, and we cannot really do that way that we provision a project with a bucket, we store the Terraform states there, and later on we try to migrate the state. There is an easier way that the Fabric invented, which is that for the bootstrap, first it runs the execute in the name of the executor. It uses, if I'm executing it, it uses my credentials, and that first execution provisions all the cloud storage buckets for Terraform state, but the state at that time stored locally. And the second phase, when we need to update the provider file, the provider file defines the remote state bucket. We migrate the state from local to remote, and the second execution of the bootstrap code will use the state from the remote bucket. So we can forget about the local state. In that way, anyone else from the team can just use it and continue the deployment. So and on top of that, the resource management stage. So the Bootstrap deploys the only really necessary resources. It enables the resource management, but otherwise it delegates some of the responsibilities by assigning delegated role grants. Resource management, on the other hand, deploys some other resources. So like it enables the team forgers and the automation. It deploys the automation for the other stages like networking, security, or the stage 3 level items. And this is one setup. It is a more basic setup. There is also another setup which uses the tenant factory, which is a new feature built into Fabric. In that case, we can have a multi-tenant setup. In that case, the tenant factory acts as like a separation. It defines isolation and allows different teams who would like to self-manage. They don't want to like imagine that they're a company with different departments. They are independent departments and they would like to ensure their own security controls, different standards, things like that. In that case, each tenant starts like their own bootstrap and all resource management and other stages they can deploy, and that way they can they were not dependent on the central admin resources. Of course, with some limitations. For example, organization policies by default can be can tweak at organization level, but Fabric Fast has a very nice approach to this as well by using conditional policies with organization tags. So this is in a nutshell the Fabric Fast, and I would like to demo you a deployment of it. And meanwhile, it deploys just the very first stage. I would like to also talk about it, and because I cannot fit within the time for the other stages, I will show an already existing deployment for that, and I will already talk about it. But first, I really need the Cloud Shell for that. So I'm just opening a terminal window here, and this is a vanilla new organization. So it only has like billing, payment, and a seed project. So very first step is to do the requirements of the Fabric Fast, which is like performing the cloud setup. And previously it was called like enterprise checklist. So I will just click it through quickly. Hopefully that it will work. The first thing that it can create those typical groups, user groups for us. So I will just leverage it. Okay. I may need to refresh the page because some of them could not be created. It could be network issues, something like that. Okay, so it says that all the groups are created. I can just continue. I can skip that part, and I will not add any more users to this organization for now. I will just tab further for providing administrative access to these user groups. So like the organization admin has quite broad permissions, but otherwise every user group will be receiving just only those IAM permissions which is really needed for them. So so far I can stop here with this. I can jump to the Cloud Shell and I can start the Terraform execution. First, let me clone the repository. So I'm just copy paste some command here. which is like, so it is a Git clone, the fabric. I will cd into it and also checking out the version as a new branch. I would like to use this v33 really already released version. So so here is the repository on the left-hand side. You can see. Next thing is like I need the actual project being selected. So that way that gcloud config set project, I need to specify it because the first request will be sent to this seed project. So the API, Google APIs within this project will receive the first requests, and I need it for quota, API quota. Okay, so our authentication was fine. Next thing is that I need to enable some of the APIs on this seed project. So without that, the Fabric deployment would be not possible because the necessary APIs wouldn't be enabled. It is like the IAM API, the Resource Manager API, billing, service usage, logging, and BigQuery. So these are the APIs needed for the Bootstrap stage. Hopefully it was enabled. Next thing is like, let's say which Terraform version we have here. So it is, if you can see, it is Terraform v1.5, and the Fabric has a dependency on higher. So I also need to update it. The Terraform. I have a already prepared script for that, so I'm just fetching the latest Terraform version, and I'm just putting it into a bin forger, provide permission to it, and now you can see that I have Terraform 1.95. And of course, these commands will be available later on. So I already have everything prepared. Next thing is to go into the forger of the first stage, which is Cloud Foundation Fabric Fast Stages Bootstrap. So I need to be here, and I have an example, a Terraform TFR sample. I'm renaming it by removing the sample, and the thing I need is to actualize it. So it has a reference to a billing account ID. It has some locations for BigQuery cloud storage logging and organization related data. What is the domain for this organization? What is the ID? What is the customer ID? So I can just update it. First, let's see the billing. So I can go to billing. And I can just copy the billing account number, the billing account ID. Okay. Next thing is like I can put the domain here. In my case, I remember it is like that. I need the organization ID, which is like when I'm looking at the resource selector here, this number here for the root node. And I also need to find out the customer ID. Customer ID identifies the Google Workspace or Cloud Identity. I have a gcloud command for that, gcloud organizations list. Otherwise, I can check it in the admin console of Cloud Identity. I can put it here. So what I have here, I still have a prefix. I can define what prefix I would like to use here. Let's say like this one, and I have an output location. This output location, when defined, will save all the outputs into this file forger as files. Otherwise, those outputs will be stored on the cloud storage buckets in every case, which it will provision very soon. So next thing is like executing Terraform init. So I also need to ensure some of the IAM permissions. If I'm just going to Bootstrap and it has a section like how to run this stage, it will define these for us, but I need to provision some of the permissions for me, like here. No, not this way. I need to actualize the organization ID here, and I can just execute this, and it will provide all the necessary IAM permissions further than which was already provided to my actual user account. And by the second execution, these extra permissions will also be removed and moved towards the admin user group. So next thing is to execute this in the name of the Bootstrap user. I also need to specify this in a Bootstrap user variable, so the Terraform code itself will know about it, that it is the first phase of Terraform apply. Okay, so I'm just executing Terraform apply in that way. And meanwhile, it runs. So we got a plan. I approved the plan. Forgive me that I'm doing it blindly. And meanwhile it runs, let me just go through the files in a nutshell. So how Fabric Fast works is like there are these stages. Usually for the automation, it defines CI/CD service accounts. Some of the CI/CD service accounts for read-write, some of just read-only permissions. These enables the further stages to be deployed by those service accounts. We also have an automation project which hosts cloud storage buckets, and those buckets contain the outputs and the Terraform states. Also ensuring some of the IAM permissions. For billing, we define the billing permissions, user permissions, and also the export data. So we can export the billing data to a BigQuery or cloud storage bucket. And we do the same for the audit logs via the log export file. We also have the identity providers file. In this case here, we define the workload identity, the way that we enable automation being executed from, for example, GitLab workflows. For organization TF, we have some constructs for organization policies. Those organization policies are otherwise saved in a resource factory folder. Resource factory is a concept within Fabric in a way that it uses templating, and it uses YAML file where it defines its own format, and it uses templating in Terraform file to process those YAML files. In that way, it separates the actual code from the configuration of the resources. So the configuration remains in YAML file, and Terraform code remains in Terraform HCL syntax files. So this way it defines this is customer, sorry, and org policies. This way it is much easier to read and work with them. So these are the default organizations it creates. It is easy to customize. In some cases, we leave just as is for the first, and later on we change it. And also Google changed it recently in February that some of these organization policies are turned on by default. So in the second phase, we also need to instruct Terraform, the Bootstrap stage, to import those already existing resources. So hopefully it will, the deployment will finish and I can step further. And after that, I will be able to show you the resources. And sorry, I wanted to record this part. I could make it more quicker by just cutting or editing the video, but I believe a live demo would be more beneficial. How easy to work with it like that. So resources are still creating. Outputs forger. It is important to talk also about the outputs. It defines some of the files it will render, like workflow template files, based on the Terraform variables and based on the resources it creates. It will render CI/CD repo workflow file for us, and we can just utilize that and put into code and get it that way the automation executed. When the output location is defined as files, then also the output files TF file will ensure that all the variable files and provider files will be saved there. Otherwise, on the output GCS files, we'll deploy them into cloud storage bucket. So this is already well defined on the README file of the Fabric. Maybe I can also talk about a bit, meanwhile it runs, about the resource factories. So let me bring a link to it. Sorry for flickering. So Fabric also has a very nice page for defining what the resource factory is, what is the use case it intends to solve, and how it solves. This is the how the actual implementations is like. For Landing Zone, it is mainly the project factory, but otherwise the concept is used like for organization policies, forgers, and projects. Let me check the execution. It is taking a bit longer than I expected, but hopefully we'll be finished very soon. Still it runs. I can also show something which is my other environment I prepared, which is like an environment where I finished all the deployments for this talk. And here I included those in a GitLab repository. So the way how the main repository can be destructured into, so like each stage can be moved in a separate repository, like Bootstrap, Rassman, Networking, Security, and Project Factory. And I have a special repository here to host the modules as a private repository for these stages. I configured the automation, the pipeline for it, so everything is green. And I also have I can show it to you that how it looks like. So I already talked about the Bootstrap stage. The thing here is that I was utilizing the GitHub workflow file it generates, and I made some small customization to it. The important thing here is that the outputs bucket, which hosts the Terraform variables and output as variables, the workload identity federation provider I can reference, and the service account to be impersonated. These are all provisioned by the Bootstrap, and after that it ensures there is a command which ensures the federated token exchange, and with that I can just execute Terraform init and Terraform plan and Terraform apply if the proper provider file is fetched. Where it is fetched from, so I can show it to you. Like I can do it even on this environment. So I'm going to the automation project, to the cloud storage bucket. And here I should have several buckets, and there is the output bucket. I'm clicking on the output bucket, and here you can see there are providers, folder, TF-vars, and workflows. Workflows is like for GitLab and GitHub. TF-vars is like variable files containing the outputs of each of the stage, and those are the inputs of the next dependent stage. And for the provider files, I have the provider file, which is like just an example. I will show it to you like how it looks like. It defines the remote state backend for Terraform, which is the bucket, which is the service account to be impersonated, and that's it. So in this way, the Terraform will impersonate this service account and execute the resource creation in the name of that service account. So let me check the execution. It still runs. I'm just hoping that I will be able to finish the second phase, at least initiating it. But yeah, I can talk a bit more about here. Let me show it. That for the Bootstrap we define the baseline for the organization. For RESTmon we define the service accounts for the impersonation and for the CI/CD for those subsequent stages. And we also have some organization policies for sandbox. For the networking, this is the networking, a simple example which uses hub and spoke model. So in hub and spoke, there are like a landing hub, dev and prod spokes connecting to it per environment. It is a basic connectivity, but it is configurable to use whether HA, VPN, or peering between the spoke and hub. There is the security stage where we define like a small set of VPC service controls. There is another VPC service controls related setup for the whole organization. Also, and the project factory is a resource factory which defines the hierarchy for teams and defines the actual projects for them. So in that way, we can just put YAML files into this hierarchy, and the pipeline execution will just provision those forgers and projects. Very basic example here. Just checking the execution because I'm losing my time. It is executed. Some of the outputs are listed here. And next thing is like I can add some further details to the Terraform TF-vars, or I can just migrate the state. So to do that, first, sorry, I'm losing my screen. So within the organization TF, there is an import block. Here it is. Actually, it is a mistake that this line is there, so I need to comment it out. And after that, I also need to fetch the provider files from the bucket. So I have a command here which outputs it for convenience, how I can symlink the provider file to the actual place. So once I have it, this is the 0 bootstrap. I should have it right here. Let me refresh. Yeah, so here it is. So here I have the remote backend with the impersonation, and I can say that now switch the seed project to the automation project. So I need to specify like gcloud config set project and to the project which was provisioned right now. So I need to refresh this page as well. In the resource selector, I will be able to see the automation project right here. I can just switch to it. So now all the API calls will be targeting the automation project. I can migrate the Terraform state from local to remote, so it will populate the output bucket, the Terraform state bucket for the Bootstrap. Yes, I would like to migrate the state. And the only remaining command I need to execute is like a Terraform apply, but in this case, I will not specify the Bootstrap user, but I will specify a variable so that the already created organization policies will be imported, and I can just initiate it. This second execution migrates or ensures the remote state is hydrated. So if there would be anything drift there that could be corrected, but otherwise I don't need to wait for it now. So this way, the Bootstrap is already provisioned. It is just switching the IAM permissions from my actual user to the groups, user groups, and the next thing is to perform the deployment for the next stage, which is the RESTmon. So for that, I would step into that folder and I would read the README, and it would provide me all the necessary steps like creating the Terraform TF vars variable file, filling it with details according to my requirements, and just execute it. So I think I utilize most of my time. So I'm just asking Camilla, do we have enough time for questioning?
Yes, definitely. I think we should have a little Q&A session. Can you please help us out, Zsigmond?
Yes, so shall we go with the questions? Okay, great. So we have collected a couple of questions from the chat and from the attendees. So let's see. First of all, what makes a landing zone well defined? So what do we need to call a deployment a landing zone? So just to put it another way, if we set up Terraform with Google Cloud, is this a landing zone or do we need anything more than that?
So usually it is, so there could be different interpretations because this landing zone toolkit I'm using here is also opinionated. There are some other interpretations for, let's say, Azure or some other cloud providers as well. For Google Cloud, this is the Google recommended best practice. So by utilizing the Cloud Foundation Fabric, but we are open to our own customization. So we can customize it in a way that it fits the customer, the organization much better because there are no two same organization exist. There could be big differences, like some organizations need multi-tenant setup, some organizations need centralized, very strict governance, like centralized handling of Fiverr rules, even Fiverr rules or internet egress. In some other cases, they are less restrictive and they can delegate these permissions to the actual teams with the rules. The thing here is that to, like when we talk to a customer, we set up some workshops with them. We discuss their actual way of working, their ideas, and we come up with some solutions or suggestions. We go through, we have landing zone like this as a kickoff, and we talking about how to customize and build up it further.
Okay, thank you. That sounds great. Okay, another question. So, are there any other tools available besides Terraform for managing landing zones?
Yeah, I guess the context is GCP because we are talking about GCP. There is like a Cloud Foundation toolkit from the US team of Google. There is also a comparison page between what are the differences and similar things between Cloud Foundation toolkit and Cloud Foundation Fabric. So you can find it, I think, in the repository in one of the README files. But of course, there are small similarities, but different opinions and different ideas are constructed there. Like Cloud Foundation Fabric is favoring the composition and the extensibility, customization. And it is more like a tool as a whole. Cloud Foundation Toolkit is more like a plug and play system. The building blocks are more complex. Cloud Foundation Toolkit has very nice components like in the modules feature, which are really easy to use. But in the composition layer for the stages, this templating logic can be really difficult to understand sometimes.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, what are the typical elements required by your enterprise customer? Because there might be different needs in terms of components and configurations. So can you use some kind of template for specific types of projects?
Yeah, so like there is a broad scale. On the most simple scale is like simple entrepreneurs, for example, small teams, small companies. They just need like a GCP environment as is, even in vanilla. They are doing some proof of concept. They even have some workload there, but they are not really worried about any security issues there. On the middle, there are like middle-sized companies. They usually require certain things from governance requirements, like centralized monitoring and centralized security settings. They don't even have dedicated security manager or operations team, but in most cases they ensuring the operations is like their dashboards are watched at least within the working hours. And on the very other end, there are the other companies. They are working in really strict environment where they need even they even have some requirements which the public GCP Landing Zone cannot fulfill. They even need, in some cases, sovereign controls. So Cloud Foundation Fabric can be adapted for all of them. It may not make too much sense to apply it for a small team, but they can just deploy it and use it as is. On the other hand, there could be lots of customization being made for very strict environments because it is opinionated in a way. It targets the most typical use that the creators are facing with, and for those customers with very strict requirements, it is really hard to fulfill those in that way.
The next question is related to this. Do you use Fabric Fast for all your enterprise GCP projects at Deutsche Telekom? And do you have any examples where Fabric Fast was not a good solution?
So when it was like we started to develop foundations, we started developing it for ourselves. And that time, Cloud Foundation Fabric was not a thing, and we created our own landing zone. And by the time we favoring Cloud Foundation Fabric for the customers, and we are also favoring it for even ourselves. So I think there is a direction for even ourselves to go into that direction to use Cloud Foundation Fabric. Otherwise, it could be difficult for those really highly regulated customers who need security controls or GDC, H, or air-gapped Google Distributed Cloud solutions, I can expect that in their case, it could be more specific other approaches being used, where Fabric would not really make too much sense, but yeah, that could be very specific.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Abdul from the chat. What are the common pitfalls when setting up Fabric fast in GCP, and how can they be avoided?
I can tell you my experience is like when we create an organization, and sometimes we are creating it on behalf of the customer, but we need to perform the user verification and domain verification. And one thing I really struggle with all the time is that the phone verification, because Google thinks that we are fraud because we are using the same phone number many times. And for that, we need to switch phone numbers or ask some relatives doing that, but that is not a technical difficulty. That is just a difficulty by process. Strictly speaking, technically, it needs a certain Terraform knowledge. You need to deep dive into the code, customization possibilities, and also the way how you experienced it for the very first time for an older release changed a lot by the time if they are releasing newer versions, because there are lots of incompatible changes they making, and Fabric Fast is not something which ensures backward compatibility between releases. So once the landing zone is deployed, it is not aimed to follow the latest release of Fabric. But on the other hand, some customers aim this. And that is a difficulty to ensure because of its technical complexity, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much for the detailed answer. And the last question, because we are running out of time, who within an enterprise organization would benefit the most from learning about Fabric Fast and why?
Obviously, technical people, cloud architects, DevOps engineers, operation teams, team members, I believe. But on the other hand, I think it is important to know for their managers as well, because the security exposure, the attack vectors for the public cloud requires this kind of knowledge. So I think as the cloud environment evolves really quickly, even our own roadmap should consolidate, follow up on those evolution of services. An example for that, we have some customer working with Squid proxy for egress internet connections, and Secure Web Proxy was released, and we need to migrate to it because it offers us much better flexibility, less operation work, things like that, and the product team should really focus on those achievements to reduce the operational cost, for example, or optimize the cloud spend.
Okay, thank you very much for answering the questions. I think, and thank you for the presentation. I think I give back the floor to Camilla.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the good questions. And of course, thank you, Tamás, for your presentation. I think we should have just a few minutes break. Okay, so let's continue at 3 o'clock sharp, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone, and welcome to the new joiners as well. This is an online meetup of the GDG Cloud Budapest community. I'm Camilla Kesner, your host today. We already had a wonderful presentation with lots of demos by cloud architect and security engineer Tamás Szebeni from Deutsche Telekom IT Solutions. Thank you again, Tamás, for the insightful presentation. And don't worry, you will be able to rewatch that session on our YouTube channel if you missed it. And now I would like to give the word to our second speaker today for our talk about site reliability engineering. Welcome, Riccardo. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Camilla. So, hi everyone. My name is Riccardo. I also have a handle called SRE Riccardo, as an idea of a colleague of mine. A couple of words around me so you understand what I'm doing today and why I'm here. I'm a former sysadmin and Ruby on Rails developer, network administrator, and in the last 12 years in Google, I've been passionate about all our internal tooling and in particular about reliability, SRE, and DevOps. I also do triathlons, play the piano. I love Amarone and the Villani wine, which I discovered in Budapest. As a developer advocate for Google Cloud, I continue to talk about SRE, DevOps, and how Google does stuff. So we are here today. Don't be scared because it will flow very fast. We are going to talk about SRE today. This is a very introductory talk that I give sometimes to customers to get started, to get the ball rolling, right? And it all starts with why would you ever do SRE? Then we are going to delve into some terminology, and then I will also have a little demo for you. But let's start with why. So Ben Traynor was tasked with the job of creating an operations function in Google, and as you can imagine, back in 1998, 1999. The users of Google were growing exponentially from thousands to millions and eventually to multiple billions, right? So as you can imagine, when you have such an exponential growth of customers, infrastructure in general, of the things that you do, I'm trying to be generic here, you don't want to hire linearly. You don't want to have 10 times the customers and hire 10 times the people to manage those customers or those users or those computers, right? You want ideally to grow sublinearly. So sublinearity is actually been the thing of Ben Traynor. I remember talking to a VP who told me that Ben interviewed him, and he said, give me a plan where you prove to me that your plan is going to scale sublinearly, and I'm going to give you the money to make it happen. Otherwise, not. So, it's very important, this growing sublinearly. And how do you do it? Well, a lot of automation, standardization, sharing practices, and sharing responsibility. All of this maybe will seem abstract here, but hopefully will make more sense later on. And as Ben would say, SRE is what happens when you ask a software engineer to design an ops team. And Ben, every SRE in Google reports to Ben. Some order of magnitude things like 3,000 people out of 200,000 people. So the SREs in Google are 1.5% of the people at the moment, roughly. So it's a very small number if you think about it. Now, what is SRE and what are the key principles? So we like to think there are three key principles. The first is the most important feature of any system is its reliability. The first time I read this, I was like, "Buh." Of course, we have a reliability deck. The first feature is reliability. If it was a security deck, we would say the security is a paramount feature of anything, right? But then I was talking to a very senior leader here in Zurich, and he was telling me, "Riccardo, I think you're missing a point here. The really important culprit here is that feature and reliability are on the same sentence, which means this is counterintuitive because usually features are what devs do and reliability is what ops do. And devs and ops are never good friends, as we will see in a few slides, right? So how does it come into play? Well, we will see later, but the idea is that reliability should have the same weight that the new killer feature that your PM wants you to implement has. Maybe not in top, maybe it's the number 3, but it should still be there in your top 10. Principle number 2 is my favorite. This is quite a shift. I don't know how many ops we have in the audience, but when I was an operator 10, 15 years ago, I remember that I would be spending all my time creating nice dashboard that proved how amazing my service was. My service was always green. Maybe the users were screaming in pain and everything for them was red. But God, on my dashboard, everything looked fine. What was the problem? The problem is that my monitoring was not being double checked by my users. It should be them to decide if your system is up or down, right? And the principle number 3, which again, it goes a bit deep into math and seems not to be, but it is that you can reach a number of 9s of reliability depending on how many people you invite to your reliability party, if you will. So if you hire the best developers in the world that write amazing software, you cannot get past a few 9s, let's say 3. But if you bring ops into the picture and you get devs and ops to work together, they can actually achieve one higher, let's say 4 9s, like a higher level of reliability. And only if you bring business people accept the maths behind this and are able to, and you're able to intertwine business needs with ops and dev needs, then you can achieve a higher number of nines. And I know this seems like a very big number, but 5 nines is actually what Cloud Spanner reaches globally, and a number of global services that we have in Google, I think BigQuery and others are reaching this number of nines. So it is definitely achievable. As you can see, a lot of nines, but never ones and zeros, because 100% is not what we're trying to achieve. I remember there was a tweet from a competitor VP who said, oh, I think this is crap. I think we need to go as far as we can to 100. So, and that's something I totally respect, but you need to understand that behind Ben Trainer way of thinking, you need to think that if you don't try to get to 100, but you are content, let's say with 99%, then you get a bonus, you get a prize. You can be wrong and still run business as usual. That's why we never aim at 100%, but we aim just at the right percentage that is right for a certain service. We will see this later. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Can I just jump in for a second here?
Prego.
To my knowledge, the availability of cloud DNS is 100%.
Yes, I heard that.
Can we say that the availability is 100%, but the target is less?
Yeah, let's discuss this later if you don't mind. It's a longer discussion than 30 seconds. Let's just say it is like, it's architecturally so well established, right, that it's very hard for it to go below 100%. It would take a number of concurrent mistakes for it to go below. But this is more than 30 seconds. So if you don't mind, we park it for the end. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Because, yeah, it's less obvious than it looks. So DevOps versus SRE. Questions that I get from people is, how does DevOps stand versus SRE? Is it the same thing? Are two enemies? Are the yin and the yang of operations? Or are they actually quite similar? So let's take a step back and let's talk about my favorite friends or frenemies, developers. I'm an operator and I'm quite bad at coding, as most coders know, who knows my code. And developers are those people who write amazing code and usually don't really care that that code runs in a number of different environments, it is stable and it doesn't break, right? For that you have operators. In general, developers and operators have different incentives. They are paid, they get promoted for different reasons. At dev, you want this person to write as much code as they can, to be very agile, to deliver as much as they can, good quality code, and also in good quantity. An operator, on the other hand, is paid to make sure that things don't break. But actually, if the operator gets lucky, he or she could do nothing all day. And if you get lucky, people will say, oh, wow, you're amazing, right? So it's a very weird job. And when things break, the operator gets blamed, even if maybe the blame is somewhere else, right? So operators are incentivized for stability, developers for agility. But if you think about it, the more features a dev creates and ships, the more the operator needs to juggle with it. And the operator, to me, is actually a juggler. And the colored ball are actually features from devs. You can understand why there is friction here, because the more a dev is good, the more a dev ships, the more the operator is in likelihood of breaking something. And then it's the ops fault, right? As an operator, August is my favorite month because devs are in vacation, and nothing breaks when developers are on vacation. Think about this. So how do you solve this problem? Devs are here, ops are here, but what's the rest? Oh, yes, I am, I don't know, Elon Musk or the inventor of Netflix. I am here, I have an idea, and here there is me making a lot of money. And in between there are business rules, business needs, like there is the business, and then developers implementing it and operators running the business. Think of Netflix or think of Google, right? Like think of like computer companies, computer-based companies. Now, there are two intrinsic walls between this. Between dev and ops, we just discussed about this, and DevOps tries to solve this, but also between devs and business. How many times do you have the devs that do whatever they want, and then the product managers, they get frustrated because, no, I want you to work on this, not on this. Yeah, but this is more fun. I want you to fix this bug. I don't care. I want to get promoted for this super duper mega feature. So how do you solve this? Well, I would say more than a decade ago, we got Agile being very popular. I remember moving to Ireland in 2008, and Agile was the the next big thing. Everybody thought Agile was solving every problem. And the idea is that business and devs are actually having a conversation, a methodical conversation. But where is SRE here? Oh, here it is. So SRE tries to solve both problems in a single place. If you ask Riccardo, what is SRE? I would say SRE is nothing more than DevOps, where you get business in the picture. You include business in the conversation, which is hard because usually ops and devs are engineers, and business people maybe have a different degree. They don't understand all those numbers and they have a different focus. They want, of course, devs and ops don't understand what business says. Like, there is clearly a cultural difference here, whereas here is more on the alignment on their daily job, right? But let's continue with DevOps. So the 5 mantras of DevOps can be considered these 5 here, right? So reduce organizational silos and so on until measure everything. If you think about it, this is what DevOps wants, but this is actually also what SRE wants. SRE is just like a bit more specific. For example, how do we fix organizational silos apart from brown bag sessions in which we exchange knowledge, but also we share ownership. Dev and Ops share the ownership of the product. Okay, it's not you build it, you run it, like you build it, I run it, but still you and I both own it. And measure everything, quantify the impact, including toil and reliability. And also accept failure as normal. For us, it's a mantra in Google. And I would say this is achieved through SLOs, as we will see later on, but also through blameless postmortems. And maybe we will talk about this a bit later, maybe during question time, if you have questions about it. So in a nutshell, SRE is an implementation, is a specific implementation of DevOps. And if you Google class SRE implements interface DevOps, you will find 4 or 5 funny videos on YouTube by 2 colleagues of mine, one Seth Vargo and one who actually left Google, but they're still very funny and interesting. Okay, now we get to the boring part of the session. Now here I'm going to teach you some vocabulary. If you wonder what is the difference between SLI, SLO, and SLA, here are the definitions. But let's get a story rolling, so maybe it's less boring. So first is CUJ, or as I pronounce it, and I'm being criticized for pronouncing it this way, is CUJ. I like to say it in the French way, but CUJ, critical user journey. These are the steps that a user takes to accomplish a goal. And one way to see a CUJ could be how the user interacts with the service to achieve a goal. Let's say I'm Googling ice cream, and I am walking around the city with my phone, and I say gelato because I'm Italian and I want a pistachio gelato, and I will just Google gelato. So likely I am the user, the service Google search, and I'm trying to get a gelateria close to me, right? If I Google gelato on my desktop, chances are that I'm looking at the etymology of gelato or where it was invented. Was it invented in Italy or in Tunisia? I don't know. Let's check it out. So that's how you interact. And remember, this is slightly different from the API endpoint, because I got some smart questions about this in the past. They say like, but to me, it's all an endpoint. It is, but if you're doing a mutation, it's the same endpoint, but you're going to hit different parts of the stack. So it's actually, are you writing or reading from the database? Do you have read replicas available or not? Are you hitting an Elasticsearch? Are you hitting a Redis cache or not? Like, all of this is important when you are the SRE for the service, because it's orders of magnitude in time and in complexity away. In Google, we like to define, and we are getting to the second word I'm going to introduce to you before you get scared. What is reliability? The easy definition of reliability is with the happy and sad score. If you're happy, your system is good. If you're sad, the system is bad. Okay, and the SLI is the metric along which you pass from happy to unhappy. It could be fever. I mean, I like to take the fever example because it's very simple. In centigrades, 38 is your threshold for fever, right? So you would say that you have fever if you're above 38 and you don't have fever if you're below 38. But in Google, we like to complicate everything. So let's make it more mathematical. The SLI would be how many minutes in a day you don't have fever divided by the minutes in a day. Okay? This is actually more complicated than this because valid is not all events, but I will park this for the moment. And if you want to study an SLI, so if you want to ask yourself, how do I calculate an SLI for my system? The best way is that you start from the SLI menu. Okay, and if you wonder, where do I find the SLI menu? Google art of SLO. And once you Google that word, those two words, you will find maybe a video with a funny chap. And also you will find a page, a landing page showing you a document which presents this. So if you have an API, the SLIs that make sense to you are availability and latency. And if you're a pro, you can actually try to calculate quality as well. If you have a data processing pipeline, think of like a big, huge ETL where you have select, group by, etc., much more complicated, massaging and removing stuff and integrating with from another data source, etc. You may want to check the coverage, the freshness, like what time were the last data processed, and the throughput, how fast are you? Coverage, how much input are you covering? For storage, you will think of throughput, latency, or maybe durability, for example. And here we come to the second part of the little brother of SLI, which is the SLO. The SLO is an SLI with a threshold. So if this is the body temperature, this is 38 degrees. Is the threshold between good and bad. Okay? And again, in Google, we like to be pedantic, so we want to make sure that good is always on the right-hand side and bad is always on the left-hand side, which is actually the opposite of this. Of course, if you have a latency, good is close to 0. And if you have availability, good is close to the right-hand side, close to 100%. So this formula that I showed you a second ago is actually what transforms everything in 0 to 1, where 0 is terrible, 1 is perfection, and reality is usually closer to 1 than to 0. Okay? And now let's talk about the third little brother or sister, which is the SLA. Now, SLA is service level agreement, and this is probably the third sibling that you are most familiar with. Everybody knows what is an SLA because they're all around us. Every time you buy a service from somebody, they have an SLA. But what is going to probably surprise you is that in SRE, we care about this too, but we don't care about this. SLA is more of a legal term. When you break the SLA, you had a fortiori already broke the SLO here. So usually think like, if you're a mathematician or an engineer, think of the SLA to be 3 times the SLO. So 3 times harder to break because this is more stringent. And the engineers will protect the SLO as much as they can, okay? Engineers will protect this green wall. And if you break this, you still have some margin before breaking the SLA, which makes you liable to break a contract, and your customer will want $1 million because you broke the contract, and everybody will be unhappy and they will tweet how much your service sucks, which is why we need to have a little bit of protection. And this is your protection. The slack is actually the delta between SLO and SLA. Okay? Think of 200 milliseconds is what our engineers will defend with their life, you know, like the 300 of Sparta. And these 300 milliseconds is instead what they will when our customer starts to be really unhappy. So we have all the definition we need except one. To define error budget, I need to spend a little bit more time. So before we do that, since probably half of you will be bored and unhappy because I gave you a lot of definitions, I want to build some muscle memory to give you an example that uses these words. So SLO example, if you take github.com/Google platform/microservices-demo, you will find this beautiful system which runs on 2 Kubernetes clusters and is actually tore up by Terraform. And in this cluster, everything runs in one cluster except for the load generator. You're going to see it later in the demo. And depending on what you're trying to do in this website, which tries to sell you vintage stuff, you will hit different services like a flipper. So the first thing that you need to do as an SRE, you need to ask yourself, what is the service I'm trying to define SLO for? Well, let's ask the user, what is important for the user? As a shopper, I want to see items for sales in the store. So item for sales, trust me, means product catalog service. This is /index, which gives you all of these items in the catalog. We don't know if they are available. We don't know if you're going to pay with Swiss francs, with euro, or with Canadian dollars. That would be a checkout service or the shipping or the payment service or the currency service. In this case, we just want to visualize it. So it's a very simple thing, but still, latency Y is me calling from the internet arriving to the front end going to the services, doing ping, 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 ping. Inside this rectangle, there are some magic happening. Maybe I'm looking up a database, maybe there are some cache down there, and then returning to the front end, returning to me, right? So it's serial. And what about availability? Well, the availability is usually the availability of the front end multiplied by the availability of the service. So let's say 99%, 99%, the availability will be very close to 98. Trust me on that. So service level indicator, what is the SLI for this? Let's do the exercise together. So we want the system to be available. So we want the good responses from the catalog. Think of an Apache service. So we want to think of availability. So it could be, the type will be availability because we want the website to be up and running, so it's available. And the SLI specification is the ratio between 2, 3, and 400, and 2, 3, 4, and 500. We exclude the 429 because we think that ops can actually manage the 429. I don't know if anybody in the audience knows what is a 429. If you don't know, please Google it because it's interesting. And the implementation would, where do we capture this number? Well, if it's an Apache server in the cloud, we could just capture the HTTP codes from the weblog and do a little bit of cat pipe awk pipe sort dash nr, etc. Right? Like I've done it back in the days on single Linux machines. Now, what will be the SLO? This is $1 million question. What is the right threshold? So there is a theory behind this, but it would take 10 minutes that I don't have. So just trust me that let's just say that your boss tells you 3 nines are appropriate. Your product manager says 3 nines is what our user want. 3 nines is enough to keep our user base happy. And we can actually test it over time. We will see that later. How do you measure this 99.9%? Well, you need to have a window in which you count. If you need to count this, they need to be between a timestamp and another timestamp. Let's say, I don't know, 28 days, let's say a month, a lunar month, which is easy to calculate. So it always starts on a Monday or on a Wednesday, right? So this is my SLO. Good job. So this is my whole calculation. And if you're still confused, I'm going to show you now a little demo of a similar thing. Let's say we built all of these SLO, everybody's happy. This is my availability SLO. My boss comes to me and says like, hey, your SLO rocks. But now sometimes customers are unhappy because even though the website is always available, sometimes it's a bit slow. How do you fix a slow? Well, we want to fix the responsiveness. Let me introduce a latency SLO. How do we do this? Okay, it's welcome to go to shop.palladi.us. This is my hipster shop where I have all of my objects. As you can see, there are a lot of things in here, but we don't care. All we care about is that I want to buy a barista kit because I'm Italian, I'm stereotypical Italian, and I don't want to buy one, two, one for me and one for my friends. And it's amazing, so I will vote it already. I will vote, and I will add 2 to the cards. How fast, and then I will order it, and it's Riccardo. I place my order, it's amazing. But we don't like things when they're easy, so let's make things hard. Let's attack this website. So I have a locust here, which runs on the other cluster exactly because we want to break everything except itself. And we want to simulate, let's say, 1,000 users, 50 per second. So in 20 seconds, the system will be flooded with 1,000 users clicking randomly beep, 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 here. So in a few seconds, now we already have 300 users. We still see a few failures. So that means that if I click browse other products, I clicked, but as you can see, it's taking 1 second, 2 seconds, 5, 6, 7. It's super slow. And super slow is good. We are simulating, imagine a Black Friday. Our shop is super popular. Everybody loves our shop. Oh my God, it's amazing. But the problem is that it's slow as hell. It's super slow. We are not happy about this. What do? Let's create an SLO on Google Cloud. So what was it? Product catalog service, right? Yes, let me click here. Let me do a Control+. So this is my, and tell me if I make it like this, it's better, it has a better ratio, I will do this. If it's not, tell me and I go back to large. I think probably this will probably have a better visualization on most computers. So create an SLO. Let me first define the availability because it's easy. Availability, request-based, and this gives you actually a preview of how the system is doing at the moment. And we said rolling 28 days, right? And with a goal on 99.9. That's what we said before. I copy it verbatim what it is. And if you're a Terraform person, you can actually copy this JSON preview, put it in your Terraform script, and actually you could deploy 99.9% in prod and maybe 90% in dev because you're less, or maybe you want more strict stuff, okay? And this, I will put, I don't know, test and create SLO. Yes, boom, the SLO is created. And now, how do I alert on that? Well, I want to do I will do a 60 minutes duration look back. Ask me about this in the questions if you want, because this will, and I set a burn rate threshold. So this will only page me if it goes, if I burn error budget very, very fast. This I'm going to explain you in a few slides. And if the system is not available, I want both SRE and the devs to be paged. Okay, and if unavailable, please $sudo reboot. Doesn't it fix everything? I'm being silly here, but this is a step where you can say, if I get paged tomorrow, I can build my knowledge base and say, click on this URL, which gives you what it is. And this is my test SLI. Now let's create a latency one. Latency is more difficult. And as you can see, can you see this graph here? You can see that my locust attack is actually working. You see, I'm attacking, and actually, let me get even worse. Let me do 3,000 people, 100 per second. So now I'm ramping up. In another 20 seconds, I'm going to get even worse here. So while I'm attacking my website, simulating real traffic, this is going to get worse. Let's say the latency of Larry and Sergey, 200 milliseconds. As you can see here, I'm doing worse than that. So again, we take a rolling period of 28 days, and let's say 99%, because trust me, 99.9 is really unachievable. This is just from experience. Like, latency is a harder beast to tame. As you can see, what is this triangle here? The area of the blue triangle below the red line is actually the error budget we burned. In this incident, we burned this area in terms of error budget. Let me show it to you in a second. So as you can see, our error budget. So what is the error budget? Is something that at the beginning of the month is 100% and gets burned every time you make a mistake or your system is not making your customers happy. Your customer happy is the red line, right? And when you are above the red line, everything is good. But when you're below the red line, your error budget starts decreasing. And as you can see here, do you see that the error budget here has a little inflection? And that's exactly what just happened, right? Let's create an alert for this as well. This time we will do it, I don't know, for a 1 threshold. Ask me about it. And since we don't like latency problem, we need some kind of magician, maybe a local magician. So we will page SREs. What about Harry Houdini? I think he was born in Budapest. So how about him? And then since magician is okay, but documentation is also okay, I will say, please take a look at http://example.com/playbooks/42. Let's say some hipster old technology like ASP or PHP. How about this? Why not? That's where we have our internal wiki that tells us how to fix this problem. So this was all the demo I wanted to show you. So you see how easy it is to create an SLO in Google Cloud, particularly for availability and latency. And you can do it for all of your services, provided they have Istio. Like if they run on Cloud Run or Kubernetes, you get this out of the box. And I think it's pretty sweet. Let me stop the killing. So now we go back to normal and hopefully, we should be able to see the website in a second. I killed it. Actually, the fact that it's broken is good. It means I was able to break it. Okay, so how are we doing on time? 32 minutes past. I have still 18 minutes, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. So now we can introduce the fifth concept that I kind of explained in the demo, but I didn't tell you what it is. So the mathematical definition of error budget is the simplest in the world. You cannot imagine how easy it is. The error budget is 1 minus SLO. So let's do some math. 99%, 1%. 99.9, 0.1. 95, 5. It's as simple as that. But where really error budget is complicated to understand and to grasp is that error budget is really the magic behind SRE. It's what makes SRE thrive and work for our teams. Error budget, you need to think the 99 is when things work, and the 1 is when things don't work. And I think the best way to define the SLO is the amount of reliability we can tolerate not to have. I told you it was complicated. So what does it mean? It means that 100 makes you happy, yes, but also 99 makes you happy. That means it's good enough. Customers are not going to be angry with us if we do 99, or if we do 38, they're going to be pissed. But 99 is still good enough. It's still a good enough experience that keeps our customer coming to us. And of course, this is a mathematical model. So there's no 38 degrees fever here, right? You need to kind of say, you need to kind of try and observe what happens when you change this number from 3 nines to 2 nines to 1 nines, right? And let's see also the mathematical aspect of it. So this is a table that many ops know. So, you know, if you have 3 nines, that means that you have 8-hour tolerance a year or 40 minutes a month. Every time I talk to a customer, the customer wants 5 nines. They want 5 nines tomorrow. And when I say, well, let's say you have like a little outage, a little paging of your ops every month, how many minutes do they have to respond to the fire? And they say, oh, 1 hour. Say 1 hour, that means if they get a page every hour, like if they get 1 hour to get to the computer and then they say half an hour to solve the problem, we are in the 99.5%. So we are a lot far away from here. If you can do 25 seconds, which is much less than any human being can respond to a fire and actually fix it, that means that you have a lot of self-healing here. So for Cloud Spanner, a lot of problems get self-diagnosed and self-healed before we get to a user, to an SRE of Cloud Spanner who actually needs to fix the problem. When a human needs to fix the problem, you're ready in the 20, 40 minutes ballpark, if you're lucky. Right? I've been on call in Google, so I know what I'm talking about. And my time to response was 5 minutes. So yeah, you cannot even go jogging. You need to stay in front of your computer for the whole weekend. So this is it. One thing of SLOs, let's say that you decide for your team to create an SLO. The first tip that I will give you, and you will probably not listen to me, but trust me, is the most important thing, is put people in a room, dev, ops, and business, decide what the numbers are, and don't be afraid to get them wrong. It's refinements, right? You start with something and then you iterate. And the most important thing you want to do is documenting it. Why documenting it? First, because if you have like a Git or a wiki or what's it called? Well, any technology for internal wikis that allows you to historicize your documents, this means that you are serious about what you're trying to do. So you tell the whole company, hey, T-System, I'm doing 99.95%. Hey, Deutsche Bank or SAP or Snapchat, hey, this is the number I want to achieve. And if this is the graphic that tells you how am I doing, promising you, because this graph is actually dynamic. But this has my name on it. I'm betting my credibility here, right? Because if I say 99% and it's always 30%, somebody can say, sorry, I just joined the company. There's something wrong here. Here there is the status, here there is the change log where you tried a number and you try to do better another time, right? So historicizing your SLOs and actually making them available to the rest of the company. This is a big trick because if people can count on this documentation, people can believe that you're trustworthy. And remember to include all the stuff that matters. This is your error budget and it's dynamic, created by the ops for you. The ops will do it for you, but the business need to put their stamp of approval. Now we have arrived to the end of today's conversation. Why SRE is important. This is my favorite slide. Everything, I spent 37 minutes telling you all about SRE, and maybe you was like, Riccardo is throwing a lot of concepts to me, but why do we do SRE? Why is it even worth it? This slide, in my opinion, explains to you why all of this makes sense. Because at the end of the day, you create an SLO for, let's say for the month of September, we are on the 17th. How are we doing? We're in a good place. We still are within SLO, but we're close to the end. So what does it mean? Well, if we have nearly burned all the budget on the 17th of September, we need to be a bit more conservative, right? We need to say prioritize reliability. We don't go and knock ourselves out into creating some risky new features. We want to prioritize post-mortem items to improve monitoring and observability, and maybe just doing bug fixes, which is usually it's a lot of study and just one line of code that fixes the bug, and usually doesn't get worse. It usually gets better. But what if we are in the middle of the month and still you burn zero budget? That means we're doing great. That means that you can probably, maybe not on the 17th, but maybe on the 25th of September, you know what? I can take some risks. So if within your time you have a lot of budget available, this is something you can consume. This is something you can say, you know what? My customers are happy with 100%, but they're also happy with 99. I can break stuff. And remember, it doesn't mean you want to break it, but it means you can take a calculated risk, because if you break it, within the budget, nobody will notice, right? So this is a time where you can do risky experiment, plan the downtime, or you could actually try to come back with your technical debt. You know, you need to upgrade from, I don't know, Python 2.6 to Python 2.7, to Python 3.8 to Python 3.9. Those upgrades are completely meaningless to your users, but they will be very good for your code base. And things break, and it will have zero good impact on your user, only bad. So this is the moment where you can do this kind of boring thing that you need to do it, because the more you wait, the more technical debt you accrued. So this is, in my opinion, this thing here explain to you why error budget is actually good, why 99 is better than 100, because if you have 99, you have a little bit of margin for this stuff. But if you aim at 100, everything bad that happens, it's always like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So you are in the no risk situation where you are afraid of doing anything. So how to use your error budget? Well, there are many ways, basic and more complex, but it's important that to understand that devs and ops and business, they need to sit on the same table and agree on that number together. Because of course, dev will want the reliability to be low, because then they can play a lot more, and ops will want it to be very high, right? So they can say like, don't touch the keyboard anymore, right? This number needs to be something in between that needs to be contracted, needs to be negotiated between the parts, right? And yes, you can use it also in more complicated way, but we will not see it today. And let's remember, if there are no consequences, nobody cares about the budget. So if you break the budget and there are no consequences, you will break it also next month, and your users will suffer. So the best way is to have a little, I wouldn't say punishment, but there needs to be some sort of consequence. Something needs to happen if you break that. So let's start with paging. Of course, if SLO is at risk, you get paged. So far, so good. If things get worse, you might want to escalate things to dev and say, hey, devs, give me a hand. I don't know how to fix this. Breaks all the time. Maybe you need to refactor your code in a way that is more observable or more traceable, or I can understand what's going on here, because it's just like a black box for me. Threshold number 3 is like, wow, our 30-day error budget is exhausted and we don't know why. We cannot tell our director, tranquillo, it will never happen again. We don't know what the hell has happened. So this is a good time to have a feature freeze, to declare, hey guys, I don't know what's going on here. Let's freeze the features until we come out of this. And threshold number 4, we broke the budget, says for 3 months in a row, oh, this is bad, bad, bad. And bad, bad, bad means you go to Ben Traynor, you go to the VP, and Ben Traynor will say, okay, we declare a code red. You have features release block, that's on me. And usually what I love about Google is that when you declare a code red or even a code yellow, usually there is a Google Doc that tells you how you get out of it. So you say like, you will get out of it when for n days in a row, these numbers will look like this. Okay, so, and the beautiful part of this Google Doc that scares a lot of people is that since there is a mathematical formula of how to get out of it, it's not a preoccupation of the dev, it's not a preoccupation of the business, it's not a preoccupation of the ops, but it's a shared preoccupation. They all need to get this number by either doing 0 features or by doing a lot of reliability, whatever they want to play, whatever the recipe, they need to achieve those new numbers. And you might not have noticed, but devs and ops and business need to sit down in the same place to define their budget. But once they do, they walk out of the room, the dashboard gets created, and they can actually work by themselves. They can actually go back to their rooms. Interaction is important, but it's not that like they need to interact every day. Dev team becomes self-policing. Ops team can do their own job, right? And also unrealistic goals become unattractive. Did you want the 5 nines? Think about it a second time and a third time. Okay, we're getting towards the end of this conversation. 7 minutes to go. Yes, I should make it. Yeah. So now I think the topic of the day are kind of finished. So I'm kind of like taking a few slides to give you some food for thought that maybe will be expanded and explored in the future question, which I hope you're going to ask me. So SRE is not just an operator who does dashboards. SRE for us is a practice. And this practice consists of multiple things. Metrics, monitoring, logging, all that stuff, of course. Capacity planning. Don't get me started on how many customers get this wrong. Capacity planning is very important. You know that today you have 10 machines. Yesterday you had 8. How many you're going to have next week and next month and next year? It is your problem to solve. You need to be good at that. You need to start doing this exercise. And of course, history, time is a gentleman, we say in Italy. So in 6 months, you will know if you were right or wrong. And if you were wrong, you need to ask you why you were wrong and hopefully learn from this and get better. Particularly, you will have capacity planning to do during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or maybe there is an unexpected thing like COVID. Change management. In Google, 65% of outages come from a change management. So think of like pushing a YAML to production or a different YAML, right? So how do you solve this? Slow rollout, a lot of philosophy to reduce the blast radius, like, I don't know, deploying to different cluster. And first you deploy to one cluster, then you roll out to 5%, then to 10%, then to 50, then you wait a bit, then to 90, then you wait a bit, and then to 100, right? So multiple waves of rollout. Emergency response, you need to be able, and if you want, this might be in my next talk. How do you do emergency response? I don't have half an hour to tell you, but clearly you need to have a process and a plan when an emergency happens. And finally, culture. Don't understand the importance of culture. Culture is really important because if you have a blaming culture and you say, it was him, it was her, it's very difficult to build a good operations team. And these 2 slides, which I'm going to present you now, are incredibly popular. These slides are actually taken by an article which is published, and I can find the link for you. Pete is not linked here, but if you want, I will find the link for you and share it later. So people ask, how I want to create an SRE function. How should I do it? And I can tell you, well, there are multiple ways. Usually those ways follow your maturity. I don't want to insult anybody, but usually you will start doing things in a way which maybe is suboptimal, and then you will mature, get better at that, and maybe self-organize in a different way. What I've noticed when a team is starting from scratch, usually they are a tool team. So it's a completely separate tool team. They start building some library in the hope that somebody is going to use them for development. Think of like, I don't know, I create Terraform for everybody. And then I have a German customer who actually not only does everything on Terraform, but they create like a GitHub repo for everybody to copy and start changing a few things. And then like they push it, they have the CI/CD already set up. It's amazing. So you get like basically a template and you customize it for your team. Awesome. I know a number of teams who are failing at this because usually you build a tool that you think they might use, but you forget asking them if they will use it. So remember, ask people if they will use your tool before spending months doing it. So number 1, infrastructure. This is mostly like I manage the layer 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything else is the dev team. A typical example could be infrastructure, infra team, Kubernetes team. I manage the cluster, you manage your own apps. And of course, I need to provide you the primitive to be able to run your Docker containers in my infrastructure. And Kubernetes is just an example. You can think of others. It could be like, I'm a DBA running all the database for everybody, and then you open a ticket to create a database, or you Terraform it, or whatever. Application product, this is something similar to what we have in Google, which is I have a Google Calendar dev and the Google Calendar SRE. the Gmail dev and the Gmail SRE, the YouTube dev and the YouTube ops. So something like that. Another thing that is actually another thing that happens a lot at the beginning, and usually that's where SREs, they just want to resign and say like, I hate my job, I want to change it. So hopefully this is the initial that moves to something else, is the so-called kitchen sink. So it's one team of SREs, or we call them heroes, who is supporting everybody. Are you Gmail, YouTube, it doesn't matter. Just everybody goes to Riccardo. As you can imagine, it's a very immature way of doing things, but it's also usually a way where you get started, right? And usually you mature from this to something more specific, right? So you narrow your support from everything to something more like you specialize. I specialize in this. I specialize in database. You specialize on VM. You specialize on networking. It just makes sense, right? Embed is similar to the third on the previous slide, but it's where SRE and devs are actually co-located, so they actually have a conversation. I think the pub sub team in New York was co-located, and that's a beautiful and dear exception. And consulting. Consulting is very similar to the tooling, but actually slightly different. It is not focused on tooling so people use it. It's more focused on, I want to help you. I'm good at reliability. Is there any team struggling? Me. Or maybe teams like, no, I don't need you. But the VP says, well, you broke twice a month and all our customers are pissed at your team. So you get some consultation from these people. And usually they give consultancy, think of like architecture, best practices, and stuff like that. And the idea is that after they pass from your team, you do better and you make more reliable choices. And then they move to the next team, to the second less reliable, and so on. And I know a customer in Spain who actually does that. So we are at the end of the conversation. As you see, SRE is how Google run our production system. It's user-focused, and it empowers engineers, both devs and ops, to do their own things that they can do better by adding a little bit of conversation at the beginning. The objectives are critical, but they also change over time. So don't try to get it right today. That's the best enemy of perfection. Start to get something like, don't aim at perfection today, aim at something good enough, and then iterate to make it better. Like if you don't know if it's 99 or 99.9, just take a random number and in 6 months, see where you went with this number and then adapt to the left or to the right. Dev, ops, and business, these three figures, they align through practices with SLOs and error budget, okay? And blamelessness and psychological safety are key to this, because by blaming each other, you will not get a lot done because people don't admit their mistakes, and if they don't fix those mistakes, and the mistakes keep happening. So if you want problems not to reoccur, you need to admit them, and to admit them, you need nice people in your team. And last slide, in case you want to check Art of SLOs, this is a lot of free material prepared by my colleagues in UK and in US. Amazing stuff. And there's also a video made by this friendly chap about what is Art of SLO. If you want to get started, there is a 27-page document which tells you everything I told you today, and it's at your own grasp. Just Google Art of SLO. That was it. These are the steps, and that's everything on my side. The word back to Camilla, I would say.
Thanks so much, Riccardo. I say, let's check out the questions. Can you help us, Sigmund?
Okay, so let's see what questions do we have for this very detailed, very thorough presentation. So a common statement or maybe a misconception is that SRE is the Google way of DevOps. Is this a true statement?
Absolutely correct, yes.
Mm-hmm. And if this is the case, so that the SRE is the Google way of doing DevOps, then do you still have DevOps engineers at Google, or is there still are there still separate levels of DevOps and site reliability engineering?
If I understand correctly your question, like in our context, DevOps and SRE are actually synonyms. Like our way of doing DevOps is actually called SRE. As simple as that. Of course, we have some customer-facing roles which are called DevOps specialists, which speaks the language of DevOps. But actually, like internally, we only do SRE. We don't have like a person hired to be an SRE and a person hired to do DevOps, because they will be SREs actually.
Okay, thank you. The next one is that what is technical debt exactly?
Oh, technical debt. Oh, that's a very good question. I could just Google it. My understanding of technical debt is you start doing something today and you have all the best intention to make it right. My friend Davide would say, when I look at my code that I did 1 year ago, I get scared and say, how could I do that horrible stuff, right? And I think the idea is that if you could go back in time, you would take different decisions, right? So technical debt is your ability. Technical debt is the delta between where you are today and where you would be if you started, if you 1 year ago, you took the decision that you were taking today. Right, so think of changing tooling or updating the tooling from one version to another, moving from auth 2 to auth 3, changing from Ruby 2.8 to Ruby 3.3, like the changing a version of a language are a typical example where you put a lot of work, and usually this is overlooked work because it's like, we don't need to do it today until the pain becomes so big. And maintaining that old code base becomes so big and it's incompatible with the new library, you cannot do the new stuff and it's more difficult to test, etc. And then at the end you say like, you know, boss, give me the next month of October just to reduce the debt. So the trick is just a piece at a time, always keep it low.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I answered, I hope.
Yeah, you did. Correct, thank you. So the next one is regarding the blameless postmortems. So please elaborate blameless postmortems a bit more. So isn't this an example of political correctness only? So does it mean that there is no personal accountability, or so there can be accidental human mistakes, but there is neglect when it could be identified that someone was lazy and neglected to do something. So how do you handle accountability?
So that's an amazing question. Thank you for that, Sigmund. This is beautiful. So first, blamelessness is different from accountability. So blamelessness, if I make the same mistake 3 times, and actually I remember there was an engineer who made the same mistake 3 times, and there was this Brazilian SRE who was having a coffee with me. He's like, I cannot believe the same mistake 3 times in a row. What the hell? And I was like, okay, how do we fix that? Okay. And I was a support engineer, so I paged this person during the night, say, we have a problem, fix it now. And that and then basically this person said, I promise it will never happen again. And a lot of unit tests was created. So the person was accountable, but we didn't say, you're an idiot. And you don't write a post-mortem with, well, Riccardo made this mistake because he's an idiot, right? We say, we try to, like the way I read it in the past is we try to concentrate on things and not on people. So rather than say Sigmund is that person who with chubby fingers typed sudo reboot in a production machine, breaking everything because the database got corrupted, we could say, we would say something like, Sigmund is the person who happened to be at the computer when the accident happened. That could be actually American political correctness, but that's how we would phrase it. And there will be this person name. Another thing is the post-mortem, you never say the person who made the mistake, but the person who writes the post-mortem is usually the person who made the mistake. So there's actually a bit of a punishment. You need to write a lot of stuff that you break things. And so, yeah, you are accountable for your mistake 100%. There is a person who made Google lose $200 million for breaking search for a few minutes, I think, or YouTube or something. I think he gave away money for free. And he spoke in one of our internal TED Talks saying, you know, I broke things. I made Google lose 200 million. And because of that, I didn't get fired. I got 3 peer bonuses. So think of like, I don't know, 200, 300 bucks. So it's like, it's a decent like piece of salary bonus. Because what he did was not only, he found the mistake that he did, and he said, well, the mistake could happen because that part wasn't tested, and he created the infrastructure with computer, think of self-healing, so that couldn't happen anymore. So the next engineer who would make the mistake would be prevented from making the mistake because the testing would not allow you to make that mistake. You know what I mean? That person gets a prize. You could be tempted to fire this person, but actually this person is the best expert in the world and is actually motivated never to repeat that mistake again. If you hire a new person, there's a very high chance that the new person will make the same mistake. So that's the idea. Blameless is because It's not because we are good or a charity, because it's smarter to be kind and to create like if I create the conditions so you tell me the truth when you make a mistake, then my business will be, I will make more money. But if I create a condition where everybody hates each other and everybody's afraid to admit and they put all the dirt, the dust under the carpet, well, problems will reoccur. And after 2 or 3 times that you have the same problem reoccurring, people will get fired, the things will reoccur again. What are you doing? Are you a good business person? I don't think so. Your company will probably go down. So it's actually not being politically correct. It's just because if you want to make money, you want to get the problem out under the sun as soon as you can. That's my understanding, at least.
Okay, thank you. That's very detailed and satisfying answer.
Okay, I take it very personally.
The next one comes from me, that what makes a critical user journey well defined? And the reason I'm asking this, because I work in a reviewer team and some of the senior members sometimes put this concern that the application team has defined the critical user journey, but it's just not enough. It's too vague. So what makes critical user journeys cover everything?
So, well, this is an amazing question, and I hope we have, I don't know how we're doing with time because it's already 4 p.m., but let me give you like a very, first thing first, what is not. Having 100 SLOs for 100 CPUs and 100 RAMs, that's not a user journey. The best answer is you should interview your users and say, how are you consuming my system? What is your favorite or things, or most importantly, what is the thing that if it goes down, it gets you more angry at me, right? So for Google, probably that would be Google search. We want search to be available. So if it was for Google, I would say the first user journey is make sure that people searching for stuff get something out within 200 milliseconds. That is our first critical user journey. For your team, what is it? What is that your users care about? This is not an engineering question. This is a product owner question. So the product owner you have 5 product owners, they need to agree all together what is the most important journey of the 5, and each one of them will know what it is because they talk to the customers. They know the thing that breaks the most, or the things that is more intriguing and important for their users, right? The thing that they depend on. So that's what I will start searching. Yeah.
Okay. So the last one comes from Esther from the chat. What resources would you recommend to someone who is interested in becoming a site reliability engineer? And actually, what skills and what experience is needed to become an SRE?
Wow. Okay. Yes. A couple of things. So resources, I would say, start from SRE.Google. That has a lot of resources, and it has also a fake postmortem, which is really, really nice. It gives you like how it teaches you how to make a postmortem. That will take another 10 minutes to explain, but start with that. So number 1, if you want to implement in your company, blah, blah, blah. If instead you want to say study it because you're a student, you're a young fella, and you say, I want to become an SRE for Google or for another company, then I would say SREs in Google, according to Ben Trainor, need to have 2 skill sets. There are 2 spectrums. There is the SWE, the software engineer, so strong technical coding. That's it. Basically, be a good developer. That makes you also a good SRE. And strong system engineering with system design. So system engineering, think of like a Linux administrator. So you SSH into a machine, you can do anything. That would be my role. But also system design. So you need to be able to architect a system. So the skills that you want to build are basically these 3 or a combination of them. Ben Trainor says, I'm aware it's rare to find all of these 3 things. So either you find a star in the dev, like a 10 here, or a 10 here, or a 7 and a 7. So he describes this kind of circle, right? Where like either a 10 in one and 0 in the other, or 7 and 7. Think of really like the quarter of the goniometric circle, right? Something like that. Those are the skills that you want to build. I think one of the things that the SREs ask at the interview is non-abstract large system design, which is a beautiful, I think I did that actually myself in the past, because it's a very interesting exercise where somebody tells you design Netflix at scale, design Google search at scale. But the beautiful part is that you have numbers with it. So they say, okay, I imagine 1 million users, so you need to count how many CPUs, how much storage, what is the speed of light, what is the latency that you want to tolerate, and all of this, because what's important is that the ultimate architecture depends on those numbers. You know, if you have lax number, you can have a single server in Utah, but if you want 200 milliseconds, the light of speed is not so fast on planet Earth, so you need to have at least replication in multiple data centers. So that actually is a quantitative becomes a qualitative difference. Does it make sense? But sorry, I don't know if we have time to get too much deep into it. So
that's fine. Thank you very much for the answer. Thank you for answering all the questions that we received and for the great presentation. Should anyone have any additional questions that you would like to put, then raise your hand. Otherwise, I will give back the floor to Camilla.
Thanks so much. I don't see any raised hands, so I would like to thank both of our speakers, Tamás and Riccardo, for taking the time to prepare these presentations and share their knowledge with us. So let's give them a virtual applause. And of course, thanks to Zsigmond. And everyone else who joined us today, I hope you enjoyed this event. If so, don't forget to join GDG Cloud Budapest community so you don't miss out on future events like this. You will find the links in the chat. And remember, the recording of this meetup will be available on Clouders Club YouTube channel in a few days. Thanks again, everybody. Have a nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.